Hello, warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Pick and Pay, wherever you are in the world, as we enjoy another week of wine in lockdown. But for me, quite happily so, because not only am I going to be drinking some great wine, but I'm going to be sharing it with a good mate who is an iconic figure in the wine industry. Now, if you speak to some people around the world, they'll tell you that Ernie Els is quite a good golfer, and he's won some majors, and he's led a team to the President's Cup, and he's won titles all over the world and won the world match play 7 times. And yes, he's done all sorts of things like that. But if you want the real Ernie Els, you need to go to a little village in Greece. That village is called Mavromati. And if you mention the name Ernie Els, faces will light up in the local taverna and they'll all go, he makes wine. And the reason for this is that that's my wife's family village in Greece. They know nothing about golf, but they know the wines of Ernie Els because, being a great man, Ernie very kindly, for the christenings of both of my children, had wine shipped in via Germany, and that was the wine we drank, celebrating the christening of my children. So I'm not saying hello to Ernie Els, golfer of reasonable renown. I'm far more happy to say a very good evening to Ernie Els, wine owner.
How are you, Dan? How are you guys doing down there? I know you guys have had difficulty getting into bottle stores and stuff like that. I'm just reading, what's going on. So I'm sure whatever stock you've had in your house, and I see there's quite a few bottles behind you. You must have emptied a couple this last month or so, Dan.
Purely for work purposes, Ernie, purely for tastings for this show. I've managed to keep hold of some of it though, and it's headlined by the bottle I'm going to pour a
Oh
glass of,
yeah.
which is very special indeed. And
which year is that? I can't see which year that is. I mean, that's the old. 2014. Oh, that's about right, ready to open.
Well, I'm gonna pour it in a second, but before I do that, I love the Ernie Els wine story, and we've had a few glasses together over the years in different parts of the world. There are loads of celebrities who think, oh, wine sounds cool, I'm gonna put my name to it, and that's about it. But whenever I speak to Louis Stradom, he tells me, I've just had Ernie on the phone again at 3 o'clock in the morning. He wants to know how the harvest is going, and Ernie's been phoning me. How's the new Cabernet Sauvignon looking? And it's not just this is a nice commercial endeavor. This is something you've developed a genuine interest in.
Yeah, and by chance, because like your wife is from Greece, my wife grew up in Stellenbosch, and that's our main wine making region. That's the nicest grape that comes out of South Africa, I believe, is in Stellenbosch. But only by chance, again, by drinking wine and by enjoying friends and their friendship in Stellenbosch. Actually, my first date, official first date with Liesel, was to Rustenvrede, was to Jean Engelbrecht and Jannie Engelbrecht's family farm. And we spent many great nights at Rustenvrede. Became really good friends with Jean and Jannie. The stories that Jannie would tell around a fire under the big oak tree, and just sampling wine, and mostly obviously Rustenvrede. But that's where I started learning a bit more about wine and what kind of wine I like and so forth. And then meeting up with Louis Stradom, myself and Jean going to business briefly for a while before we went back to Rustenvrede. But with Jean's help, we set up Ernie Els Wines just above the slopes where Rustenvrede is, up the Helderberg Mountain. And really got very fortunate to get Louis Stradom to be my winemaker, and he's been with us since 1999. It's been over 20 years now. Our first vintage of the Ernie Els Stellenbosch was in 2000. We sent it in to get rated by Wine Spectator by Marvin Shanken, who's now also become a very close friend, and he's actually chairman of our Els for Autism board. It's amazing how how friendship goes into business and so forth. And that particular 2000 got over 90 points on Wine Spectator. I think it was a 92 rating, and that set a lot of things off. And eventually, I ponied up more money, and as things will be, production, went up and so forth. And we actually got some more labels made since then, some more grapes and so forth. So it's been quite a crazy ride. And yeah, here we are 20 years later, and we kind of still going.
You give a lot of credit to Louis Stratum, and rightly so. He's an alchemist when it comes to winemaking, especially with his reds. There's just something special about his touch, what he's able to do. But you deserve a little bit of credit as well yourself, Ernie, because Louis tells the story of sitting down with you. I think it was that room underneath at the cellar, and putting out a whole pile of wine, didn't tell you what anything was, and he just asked you to taste. And time and again, you nailed exactly the same wine. You knew what you liked. It was that Bordeaux blend. It clearly appealed to you. It was maybe the Kempton Park palate was working out, and that signature was the wine that Ernie Els genuinely loved himself.
Yeah, it's amazing how I was very young. I was a very young wine drinker also. Now I'm been traveling around the world quite a bit, and you taste some Italian, you taste some French. Obviously, now that I'm in the US, drink a lot of Napa, and it's all very different. But back in those days, I was absolutely all over, Bordeaux blends, especially out of the French, the Bordeaux, and that I don't know if it was because of the food I was eating at that particular stage, but I needed something strong to help me digest some of the steak, especially the meats that we were having. And that's kind of where my palate went at that time. And luckily for me, Louis did a lot of work in the Bordeaux region. He did a lot of work for different companies down there. And luckily for me, Louis knew exactly how to blend a Bordeaux, especially a 5 varietal Bordeaux, into a bottle. And we actually got a 6 varietal Bordeaux also in our collection. So yeah, at that time, and it was really all about some kind of a European French taste. And I was quite adamant about it, especially, when you own the land,
Well, it produces some splendid red wine, and then that terroir, that part of Stellenbosch, just screams out for red wine. And I have a bottle here. It's Cabernet Sauvignon led, which I'm very happy with. And I'm going to pour some. Are you going to be pouring some wine yourself?
Yeah,
Ernie?
let's open this. I've got the old Stellenbosch signature here. I just wanted to show you how we actually shipped this to people, very good friends of ours. This is a nice box, and let's open this baby up. Oh my goodness, this is not even a Stellenbosch. This is the Big Easy. Somebody's been in my wine cellar. Somebody's opened this bloody packet. I'm going to have to speak to Samantha. Samantha's been fooling around in my bloody my cellar.
I think that's a South African who hasn't been able to get hold of wine at home, and they've somehow nicked your bottle of signature.
It's either a South African or a student. And you South Africans can't travel at the moment, so it's got to be my daughter. I'm going to have to speak to her.
Oh dear. Well, that's brilliant. It's also terribly sad because it means you can't have a glass of wine with me. But the bonus is you you might be able to find something there. You can tell me about that particular one before we go in with the signature, the Big Easy, the nickname, the swing. But it also refers to the one. I've had many a bottle of this. For me, my only complaints, and I remember speaking to Duncan Woods years ago when he was still working with you, and then speaking to Andrew Harris subsequently, also working with the same complaint: your Big Easy is too cheap. And wine buyers will scream at me. But I just felt that for the quality of wine, you were making something so good that it warranted getting a slightly higher price.
Well, I should take that up with Jean and actually more with Louis, because I had the same problem with them. I said, "Come on now, guys, we need to make a profit somehow." But I listened to these guys, and I really, take them on their word. I mean, they know where they want to price it, but it just shows you we want to look after our consumer, our South African friends. Enjoy a very affordable, very highly rated Big Easy. This Big Easy came very close to 90 points on the ratings at Wine Spectator. I think we got 89 on this guy. So it's a pretty nice tasting wine for a fairly very good price.
Especially if one happens to have US dollars, which are slightly more influential than South African rand at the moment. You can buy plenty of it, and you can afford a bottle of this. I remember when it first came out, and I'm holding out for that first sip, which I'm going to have in a moment.
Ooh,
and I remember there were mutterings, "Oh, how can you sell a bottle of red wine in America from South Africa for $100?" And then people tasted it and thought, now I know why this costs $100, because you went out and you were able to make a really big statement, backing up the big name of having Ernie Els behind the wine with some pretty good quality wine itself.
Well, the thing was, what we also discussed was that, back in the day, we released this wine when I was really in my prime, so we tried to take advantage of a little bit of good golf. And, and golf and wine goes hand in hand. I mean, that as golfers, we know that, every golf club we go to around the world, there's a wine list and so forth. But with this quite expensive red, it had to be able to have a bit of a punch too, because you can only run on your name for maybe one vintage, 1 year. And if it's a bad one, then the word's going to be on the street that golfer, he's got no idea about good wine, and why is his wine at such a high price. So there was a lot of pressure, and Louis understood that, and he came up with the goods. That as I said, the very first vintage was a 93 on Wine Spectator, and then we could release that into the market, and with a lot of pride and a lot of confidence. And I think that's why we sustained in this business. If you have one bad year, people talk about that one bad year. They don't talk about the 18 or 19 other good ones. And it's almost like any golfer. People like to talk about some of the bad stuff that's happened and forget about some of the good stuff that's happened. And that's just a critic will always do that. A critic that might like my golf, but think that I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself to go into wine, and think that I'm too big for my boots. People want to criticize you if it's not good quality, but hopefully we've proven them that we do make good quality wine, and we've sustained it over a long period of time also.
I have tested this wine on many occasions. Many of those have been with you. I'm going to put it to another test this evening. I've been waiting for this all day. So here we go. My first sip of the 2014, and there's Ernie with his empty bottle.
I'm just sniffing on Samantha's wine here. I'm sorry. It's emptied the whole bottle.
Oh, and we've spoken about this before, but it's everything that you want in a Bordeaux blend. It's rich, it's seamless, it's got a really nice big mouthful to it, and it's a glorious example of what's being made in that particular part of Stellenbosch, where I don't think it's some of the best red wine in South Africa. I think it's some of the best red wine in the world.
Yeah, true. The Cabernet grape is a wonderful grape. It grows there. We have the Shiraz, the Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot. They all grow there. So, you sample them all together, and with Louis and his biologists, they're getting the right tannins and the right amount of each grape into the bottle. He's got a good balance there. But it's a big wine. It's a wine that's quite big. So I always warn my guys that you want to have some food nearby. To just balance things out there very quickly. But it's got a great nose. It's got a great smoothness to it for such a big wine with 5 grapes in it.
Yeah, you probably won't have heard this before, but it's big and yet it's still easy.
There you go. It's a very easy. It's a big, easy drinking wine. You know what I'm saying?
We did.
This
We've done loads of events together, but I remember one a few years back. I asked you to pick the other 3 people in your 4-ball as your celebrity golf quartet. I'm going to ask you a variation on that question. Who are your 3 golfers you have round for dinner to join you for a table of 4 to drink a couple of bottles of Ernie Els signature? Who's the most fun, the most entertaining? Who are the wine guys on tour?
Okay. Professional golfers, their consumption is not quite the same as mine, so I've got to be careful now. We click into a next gear there, after 11 o'clock, and some of them just want to go to bed. But there's some good ones. Vijay Singh, of all people think he doesn't really, drink, he doesn't drink that much, but he really loves his wines. And he's got quite a good collection of wine. So Vijay will be one, and he's great company. He's got great stories, and we go back a long time. I got to put Louis Oosthuizen, on the table. He's just as much fun, and he actually also makes a pretty good wine. It's hard for me to say that, but it's so competitive, in golfing terms and in the wine business. But we love his wine. He does a very good job, and he's a great character. And then, I'd like to go into a Champions Tour player. Actually, on the Champions Tour, I found the guys really enjoy their wines, not only on Sunday nights, but right through the week. Michael Allen. I don't think he's very well known as a golfer, maybe in South Africa, but he's from California. He grew up in Northern California, knows a lot about that area, the Napa Valley and Sonoma and so forth. And he really drinks a good wine. So I'll get him. And then as a 4th, just because I like the guy, I'll bring Fred Couples around. He might be drinking Diet Coke, but I'll force some wine down his throat. He's another good friend of mine and a lot of great company.
And maybe a spot on the bench for Miguel Ángel Jiménez?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Miguel. He likes his Rioja and, likes a very good cigar. That's another one. You're right. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, but Miguel is definitely in the group.
It's a great selection. I think for most South Africans, though, if you were to ask them, who would you love to have a glass of wine with, Ernie Els would sit pretty high up on that list. And there's a chance to do exactly that because you've been incredibly generous. You're already a wonderful philanthropist together with Liesl and you work in the autism space, but you've donated some of your time. When you come back to South Africa later this year, when hopefully we're able to travel, you have put up not 1, but 2 rounds of golf with the COVID-19 fund that Golf RSA have set up, the Help Fund. And so one person will be able to bid and win a round of golf with you and 2 of their mates at the links. And similarly, a round of golf up at Leopard Creek, completing a 4-ball with you, and possibly a glass of Ernie Els wine after the round.
That sounds like a plan. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, Rurik and Grant and the whole of Golf RSA, all the guys that came up with this idea, I think it's brilliant. It will ease the pain a little bit that what you guys are going through right now, and hopefully, as you say, by December, we can almost get back to normal, or whatever that's going to be. But if people can travel, Leopard Creek is one of my favorite golf courses anywhere in the world. I've been a founding member with Johan down there since 1993. So I've played a lot of golf there. And if you talk about wine, we can find some places where we can have some good wines around that estate. There's quite a few of the guys that like the odd glass of wine. And the same at the links at Fancourt. You know, what a great area in the world. It's so different from Leopard Creek. It's in the Southern Cape. It's near the ocean. It's a very different lifestyle, but people love their wines down there too. So I can guarantee you, we'll have 18 holes of golf, and we'll have some really good bottles of wine. Not only one, but quite a few. So be ready.
All the details up on screen at the moment, so you can go and bid on those opportunities to play golf at Leopard Creek, where we have confirmed that the resident sommelier at Leopard Creek, he's a lovely little Mozambican man called Harry Van Dijk. He'll be serving wine to you, and also down at the links at Fancourt, the chance to play golf and to drink some wine there. Ernie, it's in closing, what I love about this, when we talk about wine, we've done it a bit in the past, is that it's something that you've clearly enjoyed so much. It's allowed you a space other than golf to really focus some genuine interest in and have a lot of fun with. And I know people don't often make a huge amount of money out of wine, but you certainly do seem to have got a lot of reward out of your time in the wine space.
Exactly, Dan. I mean, it's more of a passion, you know, that we've had over the many years now, and it's the competitiveness, you know, again, that you want to come through. You know, you want to come through with something special. You want to come through with a quality product. You know, golf is played, you know, in the ground, you know, on the surface, and the same with wine. You know, you got to nurture your land, and you got to, you know, have really good quality people, you know, work with you. And we've been very fortunate to have had a lot of great quality people around us for a very long time. And I think that's why our product is stood the test of time. So there's a lot of thank yous to be made, but you know, if people can, you know, go to Stellenbosch, just, you know, take a left off the main drag and out of Stellenbosch up the Helderberg Mountain, and you'll find us. And we'll welcome you with a nice bottle of wine and some good food and good company. So it's a great area in the world. It's some of the most special memories I've had is from Stellenbosch, and a lot of great people.
And it's an exciting time for Ernie Els Vineyards. Lots happening down there. Once lockdown is over and we can travel, look out for a lot happening at Ernie Els, but headlined by some of the best wine in Stellenbosch. And it's also wine that supports the work that Ernie does with his Els for Autism. So another good reason to buy it. Buying wine, well, as soon as you can, make sure you're heading online, have a look at what's available on the Pick n Pay shop. There's some terrific wine to try out and some terrific South African wine that you can support as well. A big thank you to Ernie Els for joining us. He's now off to file charges at his local police station against his daughter Samantha for the theft of a rather nice bottle of wine, but I'm sure he'll find a bottle or two to replace it. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode with our very special guest, Ernie Els, the world-famous winemaker and occasional golfer, and we'll be back again with more next week. Cheers.